Hello, this is Jeremy Arney from the Canadian Action Party, leader of the Canadian Action Party. I keep forgetting that because somehow I never thought I'd get to this exalted position. It's a beautiful day in May, the 28th actually, in Victoria, British Columbia. The sun is out. My friend Paul is behind the camera. The water's rippling over my shoulder, I think. And I am here to talk to you about something which is still very much a problem and still being discussed not only here in Canada but now all the way around the world, and that is that atrocious piece of anti-terrorist legislation currently known as Bill C51. My understanding is that the United Nations has actually come out with a declaration that they believe that Bill C51 will in fact be against the rights rights of people under the United Nations Charter. Well, we all know what a desperate bill this is anyway, what the damages it can cause. Maybe we should go back just a little bit. Why are we even in this situation where we need this bill? And do we need it? Well, just about a year and a bit ago now, we got involved in a scrap with ISIL in the Middle East. This was not our first problem in the Middle East. Earlier than that, we were involved in Libya. We took part in the complete and absolute annihilation and destruction of Libya, to the point now where they're, to put it bluntly, almost back in the Stone Ages. They have groups fighting and squabbling over who has control, and nobody has control, and the IMF is laughing because all they're doing is using up their money at great expense, whereas before Libya was totally debt-free. Now we move to the Middle East. It's this strange desire of the powers that be in Canada, if you wish, that we should exert our military muscle, small as it may be, although we do have a military history of which to be proud until recently. They want to flex that muscle instead of a diplomatic muscle, or even a muscle of humanitarian aid. Let's put it this way: we are spending a great deal of money on munitions, on aircraft, on boots on the ground in Iraq and Syria. That money could instead be going to the people who are displaced, bringing them to Canada. You know, think about it for just a second here. Canada is an enormous country. And how much of it is populated? Well, what, maybe about a 25th, if that? Yes, some of it is inhabitable, but a lot of what is still around is habitable. We have room for millions more people. And what do all those millions of people mean? It means a bigger diversity in the country. It means that we would expand from what we were when the first people came over and tried to destroy the First Nations. And that's another subject altogether. But we are a multinational country. There's no reason why we can't welcome people from anywhere with open arms. Here, Canada, we're here for you. Come and join us. We can take you. We can help you. But no, we've got to spend that money instead on killing. I don't like the concept of killing. It's a last resort. It's a last resort of how can I call it, bullies, bigots, religious fanatics, and power-hungry, money-hungry people who need more than they've already got. War and killing and mass destruction is not the way that any normal human being wants to see things done. The Canadian Action Party definitely doesn't want to see things done this way. So back to Bill C51. It has passed through Parliament, it's passed through the House of Commons, as everybody knows. It's going through the Senate right now, and I'm trying to find out if their pre-examination in committee is of any good at all, because the bill that was presented to them finally was altered from that which was given to them for predetermination or pre-examination. I'm not getting an answer on this, but if I'm right that this bill coming to them is different from the one they originally examined, they're going to have to scrap the entire examination of what they did before and re-examine it. They don't have time to do this before government closes down in a few weeks. So what are they going to do? Interesting. They can't amend it. If they amend it, it goes back and it's dead. Now, from my way of thinking, the very best thing that they could do is amend it or just vote against it flatly. But they won't do that. And why won't they do that? They won't do that because the vast majority of the people in the Senate are literally people who are put there under patronage, as failed candidates for the House of Commons, or someone somewhere who'd done a good deal for the country, or for Harper, pardon me. I am concerned about people. I hate to bring people's names out specifically about this, but this is an example. I was thinking about it this morning. Nancy Rains Green. A few years ago, she was the darling of Canada. She was the darling of the ski slopes all over the world. They loved her in Europe. They loved her everywhere. She was Canada's queen. Now, Nancy, you're just a Harper rubber stamp. I've heard you talking in Senate committees, and no, it doesn't jibe with what you used to be. There are other people. Platt, for instance, is probably one of the most arrogant, dismissive, contemptuous men I have ever heard speak to someone who is not an immediate supporter of his or Harper's. These are the people who are supposed to be controlling the House of sober second thought. So what do we do? Well, more and more people are telling the Senate and senators, we don't like this. The United Nations is now saying we doubt that this is constitutionally viable even for the United Nations Charter. We know it's not going to pass this challenge here in Canada. So why is all this money being spent to promote something that we don't need? Yes, we've had some attacks. Actually, here in Victoria, there was 2 kids who were accused of wanting to plant a bomb in our legislature. I think almost everybody in BC laughed when they heard that. And the first reaction was, yeah, blow Krusty up. But the second reaction was, what? It was a trumped-up thing to enable Bill C51 to have some legs. Now, a couple of soldiers were killed back in Quebec and Ontario. Yes, not a good plan. I mourn their loss. But to automatically charge those as terrorist attacks brings doubts into my mind anyway, because it's so convenient. It's so incredibly convenient that these attacks would happen just at the time you want to bring in anti-terrorist legislation, which goes so much further than anti-terror. This is another semi-omnibus bill, similar to the one that's going through the House right now on the budget. And the reason that they put all these things into an omnibus bill is simply so that they can say, and I challenge you to watch any question period on CPAC any day, and you will hear the Conservative members of Parliament say, we did this and you voted against it. What they voted against was an omnibus bill which was so destructive to so much of Canada's flesh and blood, if you like, or being, existence, the way we live, that nobody in good conscience, and I say this, nobody in good conscience could possibly vote for such horrendous bills. Bill C53, which was I think it was C53, which was the Unfair Elections Act. Nobody in good conscience could vote for that unless they realized it was going to help them to cheat. They realized that it was going to help them to take First Nations people off the rolls of the voting public. Unless they realized that students on the move from one place to another couldn't vote, because those people were not likely to vote for this present regime anyway. So make sure we get them off the roll. How can people in good conscience support that kind of thing? But it was supported not only in the House of Commons by the regime's caucus, but also in the so-called House of Sober Second Thought, who incidentally, on Michael Chong's bill, which I referred to a few minutes ago, one of them, not quite sure what her name was, I heard it but I didn't catch the name properly, said, we are the Senate, we can make amendments to whatever bill we want. Strange. Have they made any amendments to any bill yet since 2011? I don't think so. Have they killed any bills since 2011 that have been passed to them as passed by the House of Commons? Yes, they have. There was an NDP bill that passed gloriously through the House of Commons. Got to the Senate, they killed it on first reading. Now, is that democracy? Is that being a House of sober second thought? Is that being able to make amendments on any bill you so choose? No, that's being a rubber stamp, members of the Senate. Pay attention, you're nothing more than a rubber stamp. And I'll say it again. Now, how do we deal with the Senate if the Canadian Action Party gets in? Good question. I've got all kinds of good ideas. One would be that anybody who's in the Senate right now signs a pledge of impartiality, non-partisanship, if they want to stay there. If they don't want to stay there, that's fine, they can go. No more partisanship, no more party politics. It's a house of sober second thought. Another friend of mine and I came up with this idea that the Senate should be for 8-year term. And it should be split so that for 4 years there'll be new people coming in who would learn from the old people how to do it. And then at the end of that 4 years, the old people go and you get another 4.5 coming in. So how would these people be chosen? By the Prime Minister? Nope. By the jury list. So if you're on the jury list, which is a taxpayer you are, you get an opportunity to serve your country for 4 years in the Senate. Yes, you may have some party politics. You may have party leanings. You may have strong beliefs. Fine. But you sign no party affiliation before you can take your seat. And at the end of your 8-year stint there, then you can go back to your previous job. There was just like the old national service used to be. You do your time, and you go back to your previous job. So this is one way of getting rid of this concept of the Prime Minister decides the makeup of the Senate and what the Senate does, because it's all wrong. It's the same thing with our House of Commons and our Senate. They're totally dysfunctional. So that's something that the Canadian Action Party would do, make them functional again, because it's in Canada's best interest. So for now, on this rant on Bill C51, if you haven't already done so, please write to your senators, any senator you choose, write to the Speaker of the Senate, write to Yono Martin, who is the leader of the Conservative Party in the Senate, and tell her, or tell them all, tell any one of them that you write to, you do not agree. The more voices that are added to this list of dissenters, the more they are going to have to say, my goodness, is it really worth it to go against the people of Canada this far, when in October, hopefully, Mr. Harper and his caucus and his regime of Reform Alliance misfits are going to be completely wiped out. Wishful thinking? Maybe, but we can but dream. For now, this is Jeremy saying goodbye.